Good evening. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. This is the third part of our series on strengthening democracy, sponsored by the Strengthening Democracy team here at CTK. I am pleased to introduce Professor Gene Nichol, who is the Boyd C. Tinsley Distinguished Professor of Law at UNC at the University of North Carolina School of Law. He teaches courses in Constitution and in the Constitution and Federal Courts. He was also president of the College of William and Mary from 2005 to 2008, dean of the law school at the University of Colorado from 1988 to 1995, and dean of the law school at UNC Chapel Hill from 1999 to 2005. He's the author of 5 books, including Now What? How North Carolina Can Blaze a Progressive Path Forward, Lessons from North Carolina, Race, Religion, Tribe, and the Future of America, the North Carolina Legislature, or Indecent Assembly, the North Carolina Legislature's Blueprint for the War Against Democracy and Equality, The Faces of Poverty in North Carolina, Stories from Our Invisible Citizens, and perhaps most excitingly, a case law book on federal courts. Professor Nichol has published articles in the Harvard, Yale, Chicago, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Duke, California, and Virginia Law Reviews, and has also published in the Supreme Court Review. In 2004, he was named Carolina's Pro Bono Law Professor of the Year and was inducted into the Order of the Longleaf Pine, which is the North Carolina's highest civilian honor. He was also named the Pro Bono Dean of the Year by Equal Justice Works. In 2013, the North Carolina Council of Churches gave Professor Nichol its Faith in Active Public Life Award. Professor Nichol attended Oklahoma State University, where he received a degree in philosophy and played on the varsity football team. But perhaps his greatest accomplishment was managing to teach me constitutional law, so to the extent that anything I shared 2 weeks ago was useful, I have to give him credit for at least part of that. So without further ado, Professor Nichol.
Thanks for the kind words. It is great to see these young ones make good, certainly in this case. Thanks, Brian. It's a delight to be here. Someone asked me why I'd come down to Cary a few minutes ago, and I said, well, you can't get biscuits and gravy in the evening most anywhere, so sure not going to get it at Chapel Hill. So I'm delighted to be with you. I've seen a couple of old friends who I haven't seen in a while, and they have commented on my hair. I don't look like I used to on this front. So I discovered during COVID you don't actually have to cut your hair. You can just sort of rope it up and tie it in the back. My oldest daughter, who is an historian, said that I've studied the Founding Fathers for so long that now I started to look like one. And I think there's probably something to that. As I look around the room, I am made to think of something that I think of with some regularity now, an old quote. I heard folks over at this table talking about songs from the 1970s. And there's one of my favorite songs has a line that says, "Across my home has grown the shadow of a cruel and senseless hand, though in some strong hearts the love and truth remains." I look around the room and I see some strong hearts. I know of the shadow that crosses the land. I would tell you who that quote comes from, but my daughters explained that there's nothing in life more bougie than quoting from Jackson Browne. So I I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let you know who that applies to. You have given me a difficult assignment, and I'm proud of your series that you have stitched together. You've got great people. I'm the worst speaker that you'll have. I know some of them. My oldest daughter, the historian, is doing a series, a part of a series, which something like this in her own church in Pasadena. She is this week speaking about the Declaration of Independence. So I told her she had a happier assignment than I do. But we do what we are required to do at this time. I'm going to talk to you for just a few minutes because I think I can't let it go about the state of democracy in the country as a whole. But mainly, my goal is to talk about the challenges we face in terms of democracy in North Carolina, something that you would have, at least typically, folks have heard less about. I have yet another book about this, so it seems relevant. And I was just going to talk about North Carolina, but I just got to say this. Probably like many of you, I find it hard only to talk about the state of democracy in my home state. So let me say a couple words. We have launched a war against Venezuela, apparently because we can. We have provided no justification, no rationale, no candor. Their oil, we claim, is now ours. We'll sell it, and President Trump explains that, quote, the money will be controlled by him personally. If the Venezuelans don't bend quickly enough to our command, we're going to kill more of them. It's like a video game to us, you know, blowing up the boats. The U.S. military has proven its mastery, as it has before, but this time in an illegal and blatantly unconstitutional cause. Next, President Trump explains, and we heard more about this today, that we're going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not. If they don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way, he says. Cuba and Mexico are perhaps after that. As Stephen Miller oozes, who's going to stop us? It's a real world out there. You can talk about international niceties, but we live in a world governed by strength, by force, by power. The strong apparently take what they want, and the weak, in turn, bear what they must. I think the ancient Greeks said that. The Western Hemisphere is reportedly ours. So is any other nation that has anything we want. The only limit, reportedly, is President Trump's moral compass. Imagine that if you can. That was the guideline that Hitler deployed as well. ICE continues to terrorize democratic cities, killing a 37-year-old mother in Minneapolis because in this new era, that's how you look manly, lethal. We advertise for thugs on TV, giving them signing bonuses. Le mercenaire. Every tyrant needs his masked marauders. Don't mess with us. We've beaten the hell out of senators, congressmen, and local political leaders. Don't you be next. The President of the United States extorts like Al Capone. Universities, law firms, corporations, media folks, researchers, artists, nonprofits, cities, so long as they're democratic ones, states, so long as they're blue ones, and countries, so long as they're weak ones. If you don't do what he wants, he'll bring bombers and gunships to your shore to see if that changes your mind. maybe he'll take the money, or maybe he'll give it to his family. The corruption is so outlandish that we have quit keeping track. A surpassingly gutless House and Senate bless the effort. The only apparent actual oath is to Donald J. Trump. A supine Supreme Court utters immunity, immunity, immunity. There is nothing beyond his power. And if there was, he could hire goons to do it and then pardon them. We have fretted as a nation over whether President Trump would become a dictator. He has. Donald I. At least the mystery is gone. The only question is whether he will be cabined, suppressed, rejected legally by the constitutional democracy he seeks to undo. That will require an actual Congress, resolute state governments, faithful and independent courts, but most of all, a massively engaged, courageous, and patriotic citizenry. It is not yet clear whether we can manage to deliver these undoubted and foundational requisites. I wish I knew the answer. I do know it's the most important question that we face, maybe that we will ever face. But despite all that gab, that's not my topic. I'm here to talk about North Carolina. I stand before you tonight almost embarrassed to report that I've written another book about North Carolina politics. By my count, that's 4 in 8 years. You might begin to think I'm obsessed. I'm more inclined to say that I just can't keep up, no matter how cynical I get. I have decided to start dedicating these efforts to Phil Berger and Paul Newby, with special tributes to the UNC Board of Governors. I am pretty sure that my publication record wouldn't be the same without these able characters. North Carolina, I can say, wouldn't be the same either. My new book, I admit in the introduction, is odd. It's a work about a war on democracy within the United States, but it isn't about Donald Trump, the most radically undemocratic and dangerous political leader in American history. He hovers over it a little bit, like everything else, but the book is about the distinct, though related, war on constitutional democracy, playing out this very minute, as it has for the last 15 years in North Carolina, the state I love, the state you love. Hark the sound. I'll admit from the outside that Carolina's Republican crusade to end, to literally crush constitutional democracy here is different. It's different in tone, in character, in aesthetics, in methodology than the horrors we see coming daily out of D.C. For one thing, our war is older. It started 5 years before Donald Trump came down the golden escalator. And our anti-democratic work is less boorish and threatening, less visibly steeped in cruelty and hatred than the national version, though its exclusions tend to match precisely those of its forebears. Ours is rooted more in power and in the distorting structures of power that it has created and entrenched. Power and tribe and race and religion than the mere public embrace of malevolence. North Carolina's sedition work is both superficially better and operationally worse than its national counterpart. It is more successfully packaged in flag lapel pins and Chamber of Commerce memberships, in evangelical pieties. It's more strategic and professionalized, if those words can be applied to a project to destroy the American experiment. And it may be even more difficult to rid ourselves of than its national counterpart. It may well live on here, even if, as I certainly hope, President Trump falls. Phil Berger and his crew will keep their unconstitutional vice grip on democracy in North Carolina till we take it back from them. That job, that removal effort, is going to be left to us, every one of us. And how we might go about freeing this state from its capture is at bottom what this newer book is about. But first, I feel obliged to explain how the theft has occurred here. You know the story, or a lot of you do, or at least a lot of it. But we have to be clear-eyed about what we face and why we face it. Here's how it's worked. First, the new Republican North Carolina Supreme Court says that extreme political gerrymandering is just fine. In fact, it's dandy. Boys will be boys. Chief Justice Paul Newby explains, almost comically, as if we were fools, that Tar Heel's constitutionally guaranteed right to, quote, free elections doesn't mean that they have to be fair elections. Rigged elections are still free. Try explaining that to someone who is not a committed partisan or who believes that the English language actually means something. Then the Republican General Assembly, as you know, again takes up the invitation so that in 2024, Democrats win the major statewide races because you can't gerrymander them. There's only one district, the whole state. But even though more Tar Heels voted for Democrats than Republicans to represent them in the General Assembly, Republicans get nearly 2/3 of the seats. Cheating works. Permitted cheating, blessed cheating, clearly works. And now again, just 3 weeks ago, we redistrict, because Donald Trump told us to, taking an even state from a 10-3 Republican majority to an 11-3 one. President Trump is happy. Senator Berger gets the endorsement he's after. North Carolina Republicans show that they're willing to cheat at least as much as the Texans. One of the most absurd Republican leaders who led the effort, saying it was necessary, quote, to redraw our congressional maps to prove that North Carolina wouldn't let any one person tell us what to do about elections. Really? These folks obviously have come to believe that they're supposed to lie to support the president. But I think they think he's not really going to approve unless they make up the most ridiculous lie that can possibly be uttered and imagined. It is a matter of principle. Like Ron White says, is that going to be good enough? But of course, even that is not good enough. Republicans, repeatedly disappointed in statewide races, then develop a second plan, unseen in the United States. When Democrats win statewide positions, like Josh Stein in 2024 or Roy Cooper before him, Senator Berger and his colleagues sweep away the traditional powers of the newly elected Democrats and deliver them to Republicans, what folks across the country now refer to as the North Carolina plan. You know the drill. We make the auditor the overseer of elections. Though no one in North Carolina voted for that, and no state in the union has the auditor oversee elections. We shuffle the deck until we get the executive powers distributed in just the way that Phil Berger wants. Not the way the voters assumed, and not the way the Constitution commands. And Senator Berger won't even tell us what's going to happen until after he sees the election results. Nice gig. Maybe next time he'll make the agriculture commissioner the head of the SBI, or the librarian the head of the state militia, as long as they're Republicans. Now, I have to add that this particular power grab would be invalidated in any state that had an actual state Supreme Court. It is as unconstitutional as the day is long. But we don't have an actual Supreme Court. Our Republican majority, or 4 of them, are not actually judges. They are politically corrupted knaves, doing the work of the party, not the law, and they are not even embarrassed about it. And though this is more than you want to know, there is no federal court to fix that particular outrage. State separation of powers issues are, in our system of government, reserved to state tribunals. The federal courts assume that state courts are not crooked. In our case, that's not an accurate assumption. So we have Republican legislature that exercises illegitimate and disproportionate powers because it has captured the election process for its members. Then the General Assembly debilitates the executive branch through sore loser laws that overturn statewide elections when lawmakers don't like the results. And a state Supreme Court abets the transgressions, effectively eliminating constitutional government in North Carolina. I told you this is a hard assignment. This is not exaggeration or fantasy. It is the political world that presently exists in the Tar Heel state. No person who believes in democracy should support or compromise with this defining betrayal. When someone's out to demolish your foundational human rights, no one should be heard ever to say, "Hey buddy, can I meet you halfway?" So I try to outline in a new book a small agenda to combat this tyranny. I argue in various chapters for a right to equal political participation, outlawing political gerrymandering, and removing redistricting from the legislature. I look for ways to combat a Supreme Court that violates its sworn oath, not only to enforce the Constitution, but to administer justice, quote, without favoritism to anyone. We are a much divided state, and many people here, I would concede, likely support the treacheries of the North Carolina Supreme Court. But no one, literally no one, thinks that they administer justice without favor to anyone. I also advocate rights to equal dignity and full membership, assuring reproductive freedoms and personal privacy. I argue much more extensively for rights of economic justice, even here in the South, suggesting, non-controversially perhaps, that the central purpose of the North Carolina Republican Party is to make rich people richer and increase economic inequality in what is already the most unequal nation in the world. To that end, they've given us an upside-down state government, where the poorest pay the most in taxes, the richest pay the least. We have to crush that, delivering a government focused on ordinary folks, not rich ones, requiring a system of progressive taxation, a return of the earned income tax credit, adopting a powerful child tax credit, demanding constitutionally a minimum wage at least at the national average, and guaranteeing Medicaid expansion. Politics, as our state constitution says, for the good of the whole. I also argue, of course, for the fundamental Tar Heel right to equal and effective public education for all children, every single one. I suggest ways to secure Leandro's enforcement and to declare private and religious school vouchers flatly unconstitutional. And I would expand North Carolina's powers and duties to address climate change. My own thought is that we can be optimistic on these fronts, not only because of success in statewide races, because as we get better at truth-telling, political agendas built on pretext or lies will increasingly falter. And not only can North Carolina draw powerfully on histories of progress, and the strength of our movement politics, but maybe most importantly, with the mocking of the electorate by Senator Berger and his sore loser laws, and Paul Newby's overt, open, plain as day attempt to steal the Allison Riggs race, North Carolina Republicans have now come out of the closet as unembarrassed enemies to constitutionalism. And Tar Heels, I'm confident, aren't going to stand for it. I know you're not supposed to quote this fella here in the South, but as Ulysses Grant put it in 1861, there are but two political parties now, patriots and traitors. For us, there can be no such thing as giving up. We don't dare, we don't have the right. No such thing as surrender, as allowing ourselves to become divided and split asunder. It is all hands on deck, and on deck now at this moment, till we are past the finish line. I'm not willing to be anyone's political serf, and I don't think you are either. Our success lies, if it does, in the marching feet, the joined hands, the met minds, and the beating hearts of the much moved people of North Carolina. Frederick Douglass offered eloquent and inspiring direction for such times. He said, "It is not the light that is needed, but the fire. It is not the gentle shower, but the thunder." We need the storm, the whirlwind, the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed. These last years have been unnerving for us. We've become somewhat undone. The president and his crew have exuded a venom that threatens to engulf us all. They almost convince us by accretion that there is no honor in being human. There is no character, no morality, no courage, no obligation, no duty, no integrity, no idealism, no meaning, no love, no habit of the heart. There is only the more powerful crushing the less advantaged, only the villain stalking his prey. But even as an old man, I'm confident these loathsome characters cannot prevail. It is singular and crucial work that we are in. Deeply diverse societies often founder, brutalizing the most vulnerable in ways that demolish the humanity of all. But no decent Tar Heel can long abide that fate. So this is tough work, the toughest. North Carolina's defining attestations are put inescapably to the metal. Many apparently would abandon these historic demands, opting for privilege rather than defining principle. But not all of us, not even, I'm convinced, most of us. And the mission, it turns out, is of the highest order. We learn slowly, grudgingly, but finally here, that we can't be only the heirs of freedom. We must also be its guarantors. We can't claim liberty's gift without also assuming its obligation. We've come to understand, even if reluctantly, that democracy is never a final achievement. It is a call to unending struggle. We believe that the arc of the moral universe does indeed bend towards justice. But we understand that that's the case only if we ourselves do the bending. Most crucially, we utterly refuse to give up on the idea of an America for all, just like on the sign outside this church. An America for all, even when it hangs frighteningly in the balance, especially perhaps when it hangs frighteningly in the balance. So I'll stop there, and if you want to have some questions or some hoots and hollers and some casting of violent aspersions, I'm happy to have it. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor.
That's a cool microphone. I like that.
How close are we to being a fascist state? I mean, I see the potential to devolve into fascism, and I think that's what we're all fighting against.
Well, we can get caught up in these terms, and I do that sometimes myself. I do think this: we have a president at the moment who has meant to escape and has now successfully escaped all American guardrails, so that those barriers, which people like me, constitutional lawyers, have always assumed would remain in place, have been cast aside. They've been cast aside with vigor and purpose, and they're not going to be easily recrafted, re-instructed. I do think it's important for people to understand this, apart from whatever term you might want to apply. No one is going to save democracy in North Carolina or in the United States. The United States Supreme Court's not going to save it. I can attest this. I've studied them for longer than any human would want to admit. The North Carolina Supreme Court is not going to save us. They are heavy participants in the effort to demolish democracy. Until we can change the North Carolina legislature dramatically, it's not going to save us. The United States Congress is not going to save us. My own view, political consultants are not going to save us. Traditional Democratic polls looking always for that little sliver of a tax cut that they hope can get them elected and not annoy their constituency. They're not going to save us. The only thing that will are engaged and enraged North Carolina citizens. That's scary and upsetting. But I'd say this as an old man. I'm almost 75. If I only had one thing to turn to, I would turn to the engaged and enraged people of North Carolina rather than the lawyers, the judges, the political consultants, and the like. So it's scary to think that it's up to us. But there's no one else. There is literally no one else. I'm an odd constitutionalist. For many, 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 many years, my favorite constitutional scholar was a woman who I was lucky to be friends with named Molly Ivins. She was not a lawyer, but she was the most brilliant constitutionalist I knew. She's passed away. Now my favorite constitutionalist is Bruce Springsteen. But when Mr. Springsteen sort of spoke up, he was over in Manchester or whatever, and he interrupted a concert and he said some things about the president. One of the things he said, which I think is literally true, is when all the guardrails are smashed or defeated, all we have is each other. And I think that's literally true. I'll say one other thing. I mentioned that I was shocked with the attempted theft of the state Supreme Court race with Allison Riggs and Jefferson Griffin. Now, let me explain that. I think this is fair to say. No one in North Carolina has a poorer opinion of the North Carolina Supreme Court than I do. No one. I will accept that mantle. But even I did not think, when push came to shove, that in the open light of day, against all legal principle, against all norms of lawyering, that they would literally, illegally, unconstitutionally try to steal that race. But they did. They did. They did it straight out. They offered. I commend you to read that opinion. It's the worst opinion I've ever seen in my life. It offers no attempt at legal justification. It was the product of folks who thought the rules didn't apply to him. They eventually got stopped, as you will recall, by the federal court. And the federal court said this, look, the North Carolina Supreme Court and this judge, Griffin, they take the position that they can change the rules of an election after it's over and then apply those new rules to only part of the electorate. The federal judge was frank to say, nobody thinks that. No one thinks that. You can't think that. They're not stupid. They're not illiterate. They knew what they were doing was illegal. They thought it just doesn't matter. We're used to cheating and we're going to keep cheating. Well, I think that was stunning to the people of North Carolina. And I will say this, I know it's odd, but it's a little glimmer of hope for me. Like a lot of you, when that was being contested, there were demonstrations on every street corner, every county courthouse across North Carolina. I was at a lot of them. I know a lot of you were too. And people tended to say this, some version of this. Look, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I always have been. I don't think Republicans are trying to, generally speaking, defeat democracy in North Carolina. But if you're going to do this, if you're going to do this right in my face, you're going to rub my nose in it, then to hell with you, sorry. And I would say this, they were out in gigantic numbers, and they weren't the usual participants. They weren't just political Democrats or Republicans. A lot of them had never been involved in politics before, but they said, you've really struck me right in the face on this. I'm not going to stand for it. I was willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, but you're going to rub my nose in it. I'm going to raise hell. And a lot of them were never involved in politics before. They have their own lives. They got 2 jobs to work, and they got 3 kids to get to games and the like. They don't want to be involved in politics, but they say, I'm not going to let democracy fall right in my face. And a lot of them were veterans. Veterans saying, now, wait a minute. I served my country, and you're trying to take away my vote. I'm not going to stand for that. So I think that they may have poked the bear a little bit. I think they've come out of the closet in their effort to destroy democracy. And it's my hope, and I'm wrong very frequently, but it's my hope that we're going to see that in the months ahead, and that, as I say, the enraged and engaged citizens of North Carolina will reclaim their democratic heritage. I hope so. All right, shall we go get some more biscuits and gravy? Or? I don't want to, wear out my welcome.
Hey, Ryan, I've got a question.
Okay, now I'll run out my welcome.
We know well about enraged, and we're trying to be engaged. I just wonder if you could flesh that out. Like, what is the best way to voice our discontent?
It's a great question, and I don't know that I know the best way. I wish I knew a secret or special or guaranteed of success way to do it. I think my view of being engaged in North Carolina politics is probably a whole lot like yours. You do as much of it as you possibly can, and then you do it some more, and you do it some more, and you don't stop. Even I get frustrated about this roadmap question. A lot of people will ask me, well, what is the issue that we should pursue? Who's the group that can most likely lead to our success? And I don't think there is an answer to that. I don't even think that it's certain that we're gonna prevail. We may lose our democracy. We are losing it as we speak. I know I said a lot of words about Republicans, but I hope that one thing you picked up is they now have in place a structure which they've created intentionally, which thwarts democracy in North Carolina. It's in place now. It's not just planned. It is underway. So I wish that I knew with certainty how that can best be defeated. But I don't know anything more than to say every one of us owes it everything that we can give. Now that sounds chicken shit, sounds hokey, but ask yourself, what else is there? What else is there besides the intense engagement of every one of us as fully as you can possibly manage? That's, I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm not, but that's my sort of marching orders. I'm gonna do as much as I can possibly do. And sometimes I've done as much as I could possibly do and I won, and sometimes I've done as much as I could possibly do and I've lost. All I'm trying to remind us is the stakes couldn't be higher. And they're now, they are immediate. This battle will be won or dramatically lost in this election and the next election. So the question is, are we going to defend ourselves? I know a lot of you probably read Heather Cox Richardson. If I'm right, lots of folks across the room do. I do myself, and if I don't read it, my wife reads it to me early in the morning. What she would say is the struggle to save our democracy is not the only issue that we face. It's not the only question before us, but it's the only one that will matter to historians. What did they do under such pressures? Did they abandon their democracy, allow it to be defeated, or did they stand up and assert it with all that they have? That's what we face. I don't have any doubt about that. I don't know how it's going to come out, but I think there's nothing more important. I also think this is the strategic question too. I hear this sometimes, well, Nichol, you're talking about losing the democracy or whatever. You ought to be talking about the price of eggs or some such business. Don't talk about losing our democracy. It's not, people aren't interested in it. Let me say this. I don't think that could be more untrue. But also, I'm an American citizen. I am hopelessly American citizen. I am so patriotic that it's sickening. It's sickening to the core. I've spent my whole life studying what I think of as the American experiment. I think it's tough and difficult, and God knows we have had bloody and inconsistent success, but it is the most important of battles that's ever been waged. It may be true that some people would rather hear about the price of eggs, but I tell you, this is not what I'm not willing to do as one citizen. I'm not willing to lose our democracy in the United States and not fight about it. I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to talk about losing our democracy because maybe people are a little more interested in the price of eggs or the price of gas, and I've got to accommodate myself to that. The other side of that coin is, well, are you guys willing to lose the American democracy, lose what they fought for in Normandy, lose what they fought for on the Edmund Pettus Bridge without a whimper, without a word of objection being raised? I'm not. I may have to lose, but I'm not willing to lose quietly on this, and I hope you're not either. Yes, sir.
It seems to me that the problem is of our own making, as we, as the electorate, not the ones necessarily in this room, but we're the ones that put those people in those positions, and we're the ones that can take them out of
There you go.
those positions. We're the only ones that can do it. Because until we, as the people of this state, decide to put some people in the legislature that have the guts and the foresight and the reasoning to do what they should have done years ago.
Hey, you sound just like Frederick Douglass. Man, there you go. Here's,
Take this thing from here, Kevin.
I'm glad to have you finish this talk, whatever's left of it, so. Somebody in the back, Brian.
This is a piece of strategy. I heard this recently, and since I'm over 80 now, I'll confess to having a little bit fuzzy memory. I don't know if it was Dr. King or Andrew Young who said this. He said, run if you can run, walk if you can't run. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, inch along, but whatever you do, keep moving.
There you go. Whichever one it was, it's great. And if it was Martin Luther King, it's possible that Andy Young wrote it. So maybe both. I've lived an odd life, and it means I've gotten to know some people that I had no right to know. One of them was John Lewis, and he used to talk about, we'd have long talks late at night, he'd talk about how nonviolent demonstrations felt a little different when you're laying on the bridge at Edmund Pettus looking down, blood dripping out of your face, and you're trying to remember whether or not you can swim. Andrew Young, I spent some time with him one time, and I'm obsessed with a woman named Fannie Lou Hamer, who a lot of you've heard of. She's one of the great heroes of all time. And so when I got a chance to spend some time with Andy Young, I asked him about Mrs. Hamer, and he said, you know, it's funny, back when we were doing those demonstrations, sometimes we never admitted this because we were trying to be stout and upright, but sometimes we were scared. And he would say we were scared, kind of shitless. When that happened, like before marching across these bridges and the like, we would ask Mrs. Hamer to sing. And he said, in theory, it was because with her great voice, belting out, it would calm us all and steel us to our mission. He said, but that wasn't really it. It was that if all us macho preachers were scared to death, and this little woman didn't have a fear in her body, she would embarrass us to death into acting with courage. So I would say, however it comes out, keep on walking, keep on crawling. So I'm with you. Thanks. Okay, we good? Thank you very much. I appreciate it.